Hey, dude, I am pumped, man.
Nice.
I am pumped to have you on, dude.
Appreciate you
Um,
having me.
I just gotta start the show off though, saying I'm proud of the man you've chosen to become, dude.
I appreciate
Listening,
that.
listening to your story, listening to your podcast, which you gotta throw that name out there.
Yeah.
Overcoming You, right?
Yep.
Overcoming You. Um, you're you're ideally what I strive to become, in the sense that you, as like an open male, being able to just speak about your struggles as a man, that right there is just so meaningful to me.
Yeah.
So having you in front of me, bro, I am super super pumped to have you,
I
dude.
appreciate it. No, thank you very much. Like I said before we started, people like you, it's really important because someone's going to hear you, someone's going to hear me, someone's going to hear our conversation, and it's going to help them get through their next hour, their next day, next week, next month. And if we can do that for one person, that's perfect.
That's it, man. And like what we were talking about outside, if there's somebody that can hear this and, like you said, get them through the day, like I was telling you, I want to be able to pick something out of your brain
Right.
and be able to use that, because eventually I'm probably going to encounter the same issue maybe you've encountered in the past.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to have like Josh's floating head, around me,
Yeah.
that's like, hey Rudy, remember I did it this way. Oh, so it combats my tendency as having depression and anxiety to kind of give up, to kind of fold under pressure and not be
Yeah.
able to cope, basically. So I want to be able to have these coping skills, and it might not be the way normal people would do it, going to therapy all the time and picking up true psychological coping skills.
Yeah.
So if I'm able to pull something from you, it's all the better, man.
Yep.
All the better.
Yeah.
All the better.
Absolutely.
But for my listeners that might not know you or might not know Overcoming You, the podcast, what would you say as like what brought you to starting the podcast, essentially?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the whole reason I started the podcast, it actually started after a failed suicide attempt. And after I did,
Wow.
we can get into that if you like, but
Yeah,
after I
dude.
did the work to kind of come out of it, I realized that the only reason why I was in a flea bag motel with enough cocaine to kill a small village and handle a jack and all the weed you can smoke and a shotgun in my mouth, I realized the only reason why I was there was because of the way I was thinking. And it was because of my perspective on life. And it sounds so simplistic, but one thing that I've learned is that sometimes the best things for us are the easiest. Meaning, if you and I want to be healthy, the process of doing it is very easy. You wake up, you eat right, you drink water, you go to the gym. You wake up, you eat right, you drink water, you go to the gym. But it's the process of doing it over and over and over that gets you to where you want to be. And it's the same thing with thoughts. And so the more you look at things a different way or understand things a different way or have tools in your kit when you get down to figure out how to overcome those times, then you can kind of get through that. But so that's basically how I started the podcast and why I started the podcast, because I realized that I still have some work to do inside of my life,
Yeah.
because there's some people on this planet that I literally hate, but I would not want them to spend 1 nanosecond in that mentality where I was in that hotel. And so I will spend the rest of my time, money, and effort helping as many human beings as possible overcome those mental thoughts and those mental battles that we all face, regardless of upper echelon, regardless of finances, regardless of gender, religion, race. Doesn't make a difference. Everybody goes through these mental battles, just on different levels at different times, and we all have different ways to overcome. So the more times we can have these conversations, like we said, the more times somebody will hear us talk, and it will get them through that day. And that's all I want to do the rest of my life. Period. End of story. So that's
That's
kind of why I
amazing,
started
dude.
the podcast.
I mean, kind of something I picked up on you saying right now is it's a true testament to your character that, like you said, you have people that you hate. I have people I hate. Everybody has somebody in their head that they can reflect on a time or a moment or a person that did them wrong or affected them so deeply that they carry it with them.
Yeah.
Now, like I was saying, it's a testament to your character because you're able to see that now and not want that for that person that harmed you.
Yeah.
And dude, I'm 32 now, and I have family members and friends that I mean, I hope they can let go of that hate or pain, regardless if it's towards me or anybody else in their life. Some people never even attempt to let go of that pain.
Yeah.
And some people take the pain, like I could say I definitely took pain as a way to weaken me. So, instead of facing it and saying, I'm going to prove this person wrong, this person that said I'm not worthy enough or I'm not capable enough, instead I started believing it. As much as I hated that they told me that, subconsciously I started believing it. And I started developing this mentality that I am worthless.
Yeah.
And I am not good enough, and every word they said is true. And it just started compiling, and I you get to a point where it's like, oh, I'll take care of that later. Later never comes. Yeah. And you really have to face it. And I'm grateful that I'm 32 now and I'm able to face it. But even then, there's times where I can't get past it. And I can't let go of certain pains that are in my life. Have you ever encountered something that you just can't seem to let go?
Yeah. Let's see. Probably the fact that I haven't talked to my father or my brother in probably going on 7-8 years.
Wow.
It's probably the whole those things have been very difficult for me to overcome and let go of. And it's something that I think about sometimes, but my whole thing, and once again, this is where maybe I haven't done enough work inside or whatever, but because those people have wronged me so hard that I just said, you know what, enough's enough. But maybe there's still some hate in there mm-hmm. that I'm holding on to that I haven't let go of fully. So probably something like that.
Working, I'm in therapy and I'm on antidepressants, and my diagnosis was depression, anxiety, and then not fully bipolar disorder, but I am on the spectrum, meaning I have tendencies to be bipolar, but I'm not always bipolar because they're kind of long episodes of bipolar. To be classified as bipolar disorder, you have to have a long period of episodes, basically, that last like months. I never really encountered that, but one thing my therapist has helped me to kind of work on is forgiveness. And for me, the person that I think of as that person that wronged me or hurt me in my life was my ex-wife. Mm-hmm. So I got divorced in 2016. We have 2 kids together. And from 2016, I'd say up until last year, for about 3 years, I had so much anger and animosity and hatred towards her. Yeah. And we really could not develop a co-parenting relationship, which is what we have now, which we always wanted. But I had to work towards forgiving her for everything that I went through, and not only that, I'm not saying I was like a perfect husband. Obviously I wasn't, because it ended poorly, but I didn't see things the way I see them now, and working towards forgiveness was probably the hardest thing I have ever done, dude.
Yeah.
And it takes so much out of you. And if you're not, ready for it, a lot of people aren't ready, and I understand that because their pains might be a lot deeper than what I've gone through. And I could say, to the listeners out there that might be, dealing with some type of animosity or anger towards a person, that trying to work towards forgiveness is I think essential. But forgiveness is also so broad. Right. I think the key to true forgiveness, when you do accept it, is completely leaving that crap behind, man.
Yeah. And
never bringing it back up, and fully forgiving that person for whatever happened, and you just got to move forward. And again, dude, I developed forgiveness last year, and I'm still struggling.
Sure.
But it helped me so I don't get triggered by that person. Because, my ex-wife would, I'm not, trying to bash her. She's a great woman. We were not right together.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful we figured that out. But we were just not right for each other. And I had a similar incident with suicide, too. I attempted my own suicide in 2016, right after we got a divorce. It was intense. I talk about it in episode 20, but it really, what I thought took me to my lowest. At that point, I definitely got a little lower
Right.
in life, but I thought that was my low point, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
As much as I want to say, that was the lowest part of my life, there were other things that came up that I never faced or I never foreseen. And so you coming out of, a suicide attempt, just much like myself, how do you look back on that incident or that situation?
What do you mean?
Do you look at it as a low point in your life where you might feel saddened or embarrassed by it? Or do you take it as there's nowhere else you can go,
Yeah.
but up?
Both. I definitely, I'm definitely embarrassed by it, for sure, even to this day. And even though I try to talk about it as much as possible, it still embarrasses me, because that's the thing that with suicide or with depression or with mental health, there's still this fucking... Can we curse on your
Of course, dude.
Okay. Fuck shit, fuck balls.
And there you go.
There's still this stigma on that whole portion of life, especially with men, that's looked upon as weak. And here's the thing, is it's usually self-induced, because you and I are just getting to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know you from anything. We're just starting our relationship, just starting our friendship. But there isn't anything that you could say in that realm that would make me think less of you. Maybe because I've been there, but even before I knew I had some mental illness or I had depression, I wouldn't look down upon you as that. So, but I still, when I look back at that time, I still look at it as a negative, and I'm trying to work through that. But the one thing that I will say, the more times I tell my story and the more times I'm able to hang out with people, I realize that a couple of things. One, it's not weakness. It's just a path that I happen to go down. And two, there's so many more people that are on that path or been there or are worse than people will ever know. It's the overwhelming, I don't want to say majority, but a lot. If you bring 10 people in here, I'm willing to bet 7 of them have been down that road somewhere along that path, either on the verge of suicidal ideation, which is a fancy word for thoughts,
mm-hmm.
or to a plan, or heavens forbid, been in my position where you actually were there to carry out that plan. And that's one thing that's kind of, misery loves company. So that's why, once again, you and I talking about it, someone's going to hear it and go, oh, I don't feel so bad. They talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
They went through it. And so that's kind of why I want to kind of just go on this path and kind of talk about it as much as possible, even though it still makes me feel less than. I still have some issues with it, still working through it, even though it's been, little whiles now. So,
well, I think that also goes back to society looking at men as basically impenetrable. Like we have to be, for I'm Hispanic, and in the brown community, it's kind of this machismo where you got to be this macho man. You got to be able to take anything that life dishes out. And looking at my dad, my dad never cried in front of me. He never sat down in front of me and said, Rudy, I'm having a really hard time going through life. None of that. And like Joe Rogan has a way of putting it, strong men make easier times make weak men make hard times make strong men, and it just is a cycle. And I think in my dad's generation, he was not able to work on his mind. He was building the world for me, and for his children and his grandchildren. So he didn't have that time to reflect on his mindset or the things he's going through. Now, in my generation, I don't want that cycle to continue. I'm not saying anything negative or bad towards my dad, but I don't want to carry on the family pain.
Yes.
So I kind of want to end that cycle. And it's hard, man, because there were times where it definitely in my life where I felt sensitivity was definitely a weakness. And as I'm sober now and as I'm on my mental health journey, I'm noticing I'm extremely sensitive. Like, I'm a sensitive dude, and I'm not sensitive in the way that most people like classify, like you're crying all the time and you're emo or something like that.
Right.
It's more of just I kind of wear my heart in my sleeve, and it's easily hurt. And it could be anything from something in the media or politics or in my personal life, somebody might hurt me, and then I have odd strengths where somebody could yell at me in front of my face and it means nothing to me, because it's like, maybe because I've been down that road where, hey man, I tried to kill myself, so I'm not afraid of you trying to kill me. I've already been there. I've already dealt with that. I've dealt with self-harm, so and when I deal with somebody maybe yelling at me or cursing at me, it's kind of like, you can't hurt me more than I've hurt myself, dude.
Right.
And not all men see it that way. And I know there's a lot of men out there that look at sensitivity as a weakness, and it's burdensome to them.
For sure.
Have you, having your background and being where you went with your suicidal thoughts, turning them into a plan, turning them into execution, why didn't you? I hate to say it, but why didn't you execute your plan?
So that's the motherfucker of it all, because I actually did. And so that's the thing, is that so I had a 12 gauge Mossberg shotgun, and I had a you know how you make the little tally marks, 1 2 3 4 across it, 1 2 3 4 across it. So I sat there and I practiced. I had my cocaine, I had my Jack Daniels, had my weed, and I said, I'm going to go through all of this, but I'm going to practice shooting, taking my life 50 times, and then on the 51st time, then I'm going to go ahead and do it. And so I did it because my biggest fear, this sounds sadistic, but just so people understand the depths of the depravity or the sorrow that you go through. The thing is that for me and for most people, from my experience, is that when you're there, you feel like you are the biggest burden on everybody around you. As much as your shirt and my shirt is black, I knew for a matter of fact that I was a burden on my wife, I was a burden on my friends, and that they would be better off without me. And I said, hey, they'll cry for a week, maybe 2, at most, maybe my wife will cry for a month, at most. After that, they'll realize that their life is so much better without me. And so the reason why I practice is because I didn't want it to go bad and me be maimed or have my face off, and now you got to take care of me in a wheelchair. And so practice 50 times, 50 times, 50 times, 50 times. And then I put the shotgun shells in there, put 2 in there, because heavens forbid the first one didn't work, and sat in a chair facing inside this little spot, this little flea bag motel where you put your, jacket or hang your jacket so all the mess would go in there. Left money on the counter for cleanup. Note to everybody, my name is Josh Knutti. I did this on my own recognizance. Here's my address, here's my phone number, here's my wife's phone number, my best friend, my brother. And then I was ready to go, tears streaming down my face, and then I went to go click the trigger, actually clicked it, and nothing happened.
Wow.
And what I would come to find out is that I had changed the car battery in my car and put the old battery in my trunk. That's where I had my shotgun shells. It was back there for months. It tipped over. The acid or whatever from the battery went into the shells and actually swelled the shells just enough so it wouldn't go through. It wouldn't go through the barrel.
Holy shit.
And so after that click of the trigger, that is a level of darkness, despair, that very few people on this planet will ever understand, because you can get to the point where your finger is on the trigger or you're at the edge, and you not jump or not click, but when you click or when you jump and you still don't get the desired result, there's a different level of darkness that comes over you. And then from there, then it was just, I had to do a lot of work kind of coming at it. So I actually did follow through on that, and fortunately, or I used to say unfortunately, but now I say fortunately, it didn't work. So,
Man, that's heavy, bro.
yeah.
And you know, something that is gonna, I have tendencies to, I pick up on things people say, and their exact recount of how they say it will stick in my head as long as I live. And something you were saying was, I felt like I was a burden to my family, my friends, my wife, everyone around me. And that's something that some people, I hope, never experience. But if they do, it's quite common. And it's okay to have those feelings.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's okay for us to, like, you know, we can relate on that. We took it to a certain level that we really didn't need to. But we felt so, I felt like so inadequate as a human. And I say that as a human because it entails, as a father, a son, an uncle, a friend, a coworker, an employee, whatever you want to call me. I felt like I was nothing. And the only result, or the only way to get you out, was through suicide. And talking to you, Josh, you're a clear example that that's not the truth.
Right.
And the fact that you attempted and you pulled that trigger, rarely do people get to speak about that.
Right.
I've read multiple articles where when somebody commits suicide or attempts to, and they jump off, let's say, a bridge, and they don't die, they immediately regret it the moment they jump off.
Yeah.
Did you encounter that when you pulled that trigger?
No. I remember the first thought that I had was, you can't even fucking do that right. That was the first thought that I had. And then it was, I remember having that feeling.
Dang.
And then falling down in a fetal position, and then literally, no exaggeration, not being able to move, and just uncontrollably crying. I was numb. I couldn't move, like my fingers, they just wouldn't move. I couldn't get to the phone to call anybody or text anybody. So I don't know how long I was there. And then finally I remember, like, one little toe was able to start to move, and then my fingers were able to start to move, and then I got the phone and text, a text chain that I'm on with my brother, my best friend, and my wife, and said, hey, you need to come get me. And then that's what happened. But yeah, I remember that first thought was, you can't even fucking do that right.
Damn, man. I relate so much to that. And you know, depression is a mother effort, man. And it completely controls your entire life, where it tells you that falseness that, like you said, I can't even kill myself.
Yeah.
That's how weak I am. Instead of what depression is trying to block is, dude, that was not your time to go. You might have felt it, but it wasn't your time. You got something bigger and better for you. Depression will hide that shit.
Yeah.
And some people, you know, like for me, I attempted my suicide in 2016. After 2016, it wasn't like I was awakened and I was all better. No, I was admitted 5150. So they drove me to UCLA Med or the psych ward, and I lied my way through. They let me out within like a day, and I kind of just made up things that it was just a divorce, and I'm okay. I got out. I didn't fix myself. I didn't go to therapy. I didn't go. I actually did start taking medication, but I was drinking the whole time. So I'm not sure. Are you familiar with any type of like antidepressants at all, or any
I tried
medication?
them for a little bit, but I was so terrified of being hooked on them that I didn't use them
Yeah,
for like a month then.
I feel you, dude. Because a lot of people might not know, but if you're going down the medication route, it's difficult because each medication is about a 4 to 6 week turnaround. So you don't feel the effects until like that fourth week, and then they might not even work out for you. And I've been through probably like 7 medications that I say didn't work out, but I was drinking the whole time.
Yeah.
I was drinking on them, smoking weed on them, thinking this medication doesn't do shit. It's not doing anything for me. But in reality, I wasn't being honest with myself, you know? And had I have the mentality I have now after my suicide attempt, I'm sure the last 4 years of my life would have been a lot different.
Oh, for sure.
But I didn't, dude. And I didn't try to clean myself up or fix myself. I felt, if anything, I felt more angry that I got to that low point and people know about it.
Yeah.
So I didn't develop like a support team, or I just hid it from everyone. So I know you said you left a note with your best friend, your wife, your brother. Did you develop a support team around you because they knew of that situation? Or
After?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't use them as well as I wish I would have.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, dude.
Going back to kind of what we were talking about before, is that I still felt like I was a burden on them. And so before, I was able to hide it. But now that the cat's out of the bag because of what I tried to do, now I feel like I'm even more of a burden because now they got to worry about me more. And so, but there was a support team, small group of people there for sure.
Yeah. And I relate because I didn't go to my support team, and I still struggle with it. Like, I have my sister, my fiance now, my parents, and that's kind of my support group outside of my therapist and my psychiatrist. And I struggle with going to them, dude. Reaching out is a mother.
Yeah.
It's a real mother, dude. And even when you tried to, attempt your own suicide, for me, like when I attempted, I still didn't use them. And the hands were out there.
Yeah.
The hands were out, asking, begging for me to accept them, and I couldn't. I ran from it due to that feeling of being a burden.
Yep.
And feeling like, God dang, like you said, now they have to worry about me. I'm a grown man, and I tried to, do this, or I tried to kill myself. I'm such a burden. And I didn't take any accountability for myself, man. And I didn't look into who I was as a man, as a person. And I could honestly say that the suicide attempt still didn't give me that.
Yeah.
So you being here now, what gives you the ability to look in Josh and see, all right, dude, and dissect that situation? What brought you to that moment?
What brought me to that?
That
night?
Yeah, that night.
So it started. It was a gradual process, which that is really, really key to understand. Is that my whole entire life, there was some interesting things that happened after. I was like, after I came out of it, started doing some therapy and stuff. I was like, oh, I was just always depressed, but that wasn't the case. Like, I was projecting that backwards, which wasn't the case. I was really a happy-go-lucky type of dude, life of the party. We were talking outside. I've always been financially kind of ahead of everybody, all my friends and everything. So, but then when I went to go try to step up to the plate and take a huge shot and try to buy a $10 million corporation and failed, then what happened is over the course of a couple of years, it started with, what are you going to do now? You're dumb, you're stupid, you're a loser. How are you going to provide for your family or my wife? everybody thinks that you're a failure, and it started with 1 day a week, and then 2 days a week, and I started drinking 1 day a week, then 2 days a week, and then what ended up happening, looking back, it was every day, nonstop, just you're dumb, you're stupid, you're worthless, you're never going to accomplish anything, who do you think you are, you know, you don't have a master's from Harvard, you don't have anything, any asterisk next to your name, you don't have a company, what are you going to do? And just slowly built to that portion where it was all day, every day, nonstop, talking to myself about how terrible I was. And it was a slow build, and that's why it's so crucial for people listening, is that if they have one negative thought about themselves, they need to realize that, hey, that's an issue, and catch it now and figure out how to stop it. Otherwise, you are going to end up in my position. It's just a slow build over and over and over. So,
man, stopping it before that crap builds up. I'll be honest, even if I was 23 and listening to this podcast, I might not even understand like that build up yet, and I'm already doing it, you know. So I'm already telling myself, you're kind of a piece of crap, you're kind of a douchebag, you're kind of this, you're lesser than. I might not have ever seen that, but you speaking of how something so small, one negative thought can just snowball, dude. And to anybody watching on YouTube, it's hot as balls in here.
Really hot.
It is super hot in here. We have an AC that is hooked up, so it makes it even hotter out here. But yeah, so you'll see us like wiping sweat. I'm sweating, like my shirt is drenched right now, dude. I'm glad I wore black because, dude, it would be showing like nuts right now. But going back to how you felt, feeling like you're a failure. You said you attempted to purchase that $10 million corporation, and before I definitely want to go into that a little more, but you also mentioned you were financially ahead of most people, especially during at a young age, because I think we were speaking outside. You were making well over $60,000 a year at the age of 20.
Yep.
Dude, there's so much pressure that comes with that. Did you see it? Did you feel pressure on, I make more money, so it's more of a responsibility?
Yeah. I didn't see it as a pressure. I saw it as it was never enough. So I made 60, I had to make 75. I made 75, I had to make 100. 100, I had to make 125. 125, I had to make 150, over and over and over, and it was never enough. I was trying to fill a void inside of me with some sort of finances that just was never ever enough.
What do you think that void was? Feeling like maybe inadequate?
For sure. Probably inadequate. Probably, if we're going to really go psychological, probably stems from my childhood. My dad was really rough on me. Dad was very physical and very verbally abusive. So that was probably the whole thing.
Yeah, dude. That I mean, I'm a dad now, and I'm grateful I don't have that. I consider it like a sickness, any type of physical abuse or even verbal abuse, man.
Yeah.
There were things that, my dad has said to me that will always stick with me. And, he wasn't verbally abusive, but the things he might have said just stuck with me so deeply. So I can't imagine someone who is being verbally abused and always trying to, I guess, counter whatever was said through monetary possession or growth, and chasing money instead of chasing the challenge is something I can definitely relate with you on, because I chased the money, man. I mean, the most I ever made was about $90,000, and I was like 27, so I thought, man, I'm on top of the world. That's it, I made it, and I'm going higher. By the time I'm 30, I'm gonna make $200,000, and not thinking, well, Rudy, you got a lot of demons in you, buddy, and you're drinking most of your money away, which I did, and you're smoking most of it, and you're running from your problems, dude. And I could have made all the money in the world. My problem still would have been there.
Yep.
My childhood still would have been there. all the deficiencies I went through as a father, as a husband, you know, all that shit is still there, regardless of having 4 zeros, 5 zeros, 6 zeros in your bank account.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't come to terms with that, dude. I still have friends nowadays that on the outside of the world, you know, on the outside, they're making that money. They're living a beautiful, gorgeous life, you know? But inside, knowing the things I know about them and the experiences we've had together, they're as dark as I was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's scary, man, because, you know, being a man, it's hard for us to talk about this kind of shit.
For sure.
It's not, you know, if I did talk about heavy things, it was usually at the bar, you know? And the next night I wouldn't remember, and it was probably with a stranger or even with a friend, but we were both pissed drunk, so nobody's going to remember shit anyways.
Yeah.
And we had money in our pocket, so we felt like, those problems will go away, you know? And I definitely felt that, later, it'll clear up, and I'll get my shit together later, and I'll face those problems later, or I just spent more money to try to run from it, dude.
Right.
And you get tired of running. You get tired of being tired.
That's for sure.
And you just get tired of, like I was telling you earlier, I prided myself on how deceptive I was to people. So even if, you know, when I was making $60,000, I lost my job, I started making $70,000 in my new job. The outside world, they thought, oh, Rudy's back on his feet. He's doing real good.
Yeah.
No, man, I'm just making more money, but I'm doing worse, dude.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn anything. So for me, like, when I failed, instead of trying to learn why I failed, I just felt so shitty about failing. And I can't say that I grew out of that, or my suicide attempt took me, you know, away from that mentality. It didn't, dude. It takes a lot of self-reflection. You really got to develop. You got to put it all on the table, and you got to call it what it is.
Yeah.
You know. And for me, those issues were substance abuse, losses. I've had a lot of losses in my life. I lost my best friend at the age of 18, and that, now that I'm sober and I'm reflecting on things, it was a huge damage to my life, man. And I never recovered from that, like, coping wise. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is, as you encounter the roller coaster of life, because that's really what life is all about, man. You're just you're gonna be up, and then you're gonna be down. I remember reading Chaucer. He's a famous writer. He wrote in like weird language back then, and he talks about the wheel of fortune, and how, you know, you're up here, then that wheel's eventually going to turn and you're going to be down there. So when I got down there, I didn't know how to deal with it. And I know, you know, aside from your suicide attempt, I'm sure there were other things where you were on that lower end of the wheel. How did you get past that prior to what you know now? Like, how did you get past that in the past?
In the past, not well, but I will say that one of the things, in order for me to get past the depression and everything, which still will work for anybody regardless of where you're at, is that you have to build self-worth. And there's multiple different ways that you can build that. And so one of the things that I did is I spent a month in bed after that suicide attempt. So I had to build self-worth. And the only way that I knew how to build self-worth is to follow through on something that you tell yourself you're going to do. And so I was so broken and so messed up that I said to myself, for 30 days, I'm going to take a quarter and move it from my nightstand to my dresser, from my nightstand to my dresser. Keep in mind, I don't live in a mansion. I'm 6'2", so it's like one long stride to get from one to there, so it's not difficult. And I'm not taking showers, I'm barely getting out of bed. and nightstand dresser. Didn't tell anybody, didn't tell my wife, didn't post it on Instagram, like, hey, I'm going to build my self-worth or anything. And then day 15, day 17 came along. I went to bed and I saw the quarter on my dresser, and I had to move it to my nightstand. And I sit there and have a conversation, realize that it's literally one long stride for me. And the conversation was, this is so stupid, you're so dumb, who's going to give a shit about a fucking quarter, this isn't going to do anything for you, this is so stupid, what the fuck are you doing, who do you think you are, this isn't going to do anything. Then finally I was like, fuck it, you know what, I'll just do it. So that was day 15, 17, something like that. I did it, and then kept going, nightstand dresser, all the way to day 30. And did I feel like a superhero? Did I feel like Kobe? Absolutely not. But did I feel a little bit better about myself? 100%. And I think the more times that you follow through on what you tell yourself you're going to do, more times you can stack those up. However small they are, the more of those you have together, the stronger your self-belief is, the stronger your self-worth, the kinder you are to yourself. And it could be something small. Take a pen and click it. I'm going to click this 10 times a day for 30 days. And you click it. It's so stupid, but the fact that you're telling yourself you're going to do something, on a biological level and a neurological level, you're actually increasing those neural pathways and making your brain stronger, but you're making your belief in yourself stronger. And so one thing that I'm doing right now is that I'm running 3 miles a day for 30 days. Today's day 20 whatever. And 3 miles isn't a long time, but it's long enough just to be fucking annoying, but short enough
Big time, dude.
Just so you can get through it. And, and same fucking thing happened with that roller coaster. I'm on I think it's day 23, 24, something like that. On day 15, I was like, this is so dumb. Because I'm not posting on Instagram, not posting on social media, just doing it for myself. I said, this is so dumb. And I'm like, let me just do it. And so I just walked it. It took me 52 minutes, so I just walked it. Then the next day, I had my fastest time ever. And it's the exact same way, no matter what you got going on in life. It's going to be that exact same way. You're going to start doing something, you're going to do it, you're going to come to a point where you don't want to do it. The times you push through that, right on the other side of that, it's going to get better, going to get easier, and then that's going to increase your self-belief. And when that stronger that self-belief and self-worth gets, when shit hits the fan or shit comes at you, you're stronger for it, and you know that, hey, I can get through this. But for me, there was so many. I was ruminating on all my failures before, so when it got to that point, I didn't have the strength to kind of push forward and keep going. Yeah. So I had to build my self-worth by proving to myself that I could follow through on something that I told myself I was going to do, regardless of how big or how small, and stack those up to now where when shit hits the fan, like I said, right now, I'm strong enough to get through it. But I still have bad days. I still go through it. Just had a bad day the other day. Still go through it. So no matter who you are or what happens, you're still going to go through it. It's just on different levels and different strengths and different waves, but everybody goes through it regardless.
Wow. I like we talked about earlier, I want to take things from you. I want to steal shamelessly.
Yeah.
And working on my self-worth has been something I'm good at exploiting my weaknesses, and that's definitely a weakness I have, is working on my self-worth, aside from the physical of telling myself, Rudy, you are worth it. I don't really set goals like that. Running 3 miles a day or walking 3 miles a day, 3 miles alone a day, is amazing, man. And back to kind of that quarter, moving that quarter, General Mattis, his famous Mad Dog Mattis, his first thing he says you do is you get up, you make your bed. Mm-hmm. Make your bed. Just make your bed. That's it. Move on. It's something to feel proud about. And I can't say, I do that every day. Like you said, there are days when I struggle, man, and I feel like my heart is trying to consume itself, and I feel completely dark, and I slide. I tend to slide in those negative thoughts that turn into fucking self-harming for me, or isolation. Isolation was always a big thing for me, dude. Huge, man. And even if I had a million people in my support group, I'm just getting better at pushing a million people away from me.
Yeah.
And some people still self-isolate. And I can tell you, dude, it is not, for me, it was not what I needed in my life.
Yeah.
So us being, not the best guys at reaching out, and us being ones that self-isolate, what do you do to get yourself away from that poor coping skill?
Yeah.
What do you do to kind of get yourself out of isolation?
There's a lot of things that I do. Can we pause real quick?
Yeah, dude.
Step outside.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's hot.
Dude, it's hot, man. It's hot, dude. Yeah. Get out of you, though, before you go.
Yeah.
Your podcast world. Mm-hmm. So I was going through, all your episodes and all your different conversations. You've had musicians to doctors to what look like friends,
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing you're taking from the podcast so far?
It's actually a really good question. The biggest thing is a few things. One is, I kind of alluded to it earlier, is that no matter who you are or what you are, no matter how much money you make, whether you're a multimillionaire, whether I've had neuroscientists from MIT on, or I've had Olympic level athletes on, everybody goes through times where they have negative thoughts about themselves. The reason why the Olympic athletes got to be Olympians is that when they were negative about themselves, they had the tools and were able to snap out of it quicker than maybe the average. So that was one that really made me feel good, is that the people that I quote unquote look up to still go through the same shit that you and I do. It's no different whatsoever. They still have times where they feel worthless. They still have times where they don't feel like they're enough. So that's one. And then two, the other thing is that I realized is that success or achievement is very boring. And what I mean by that is every single musician I've had on, or Olympian, or doctor, or entrepreneur, they've said something either on air or off air to the point where they were not the most talented person that they've ever met. And I've always asked them, why did you make it? And they said, because I just didn't give up. I just didn't quit. And especially with the Olympians, I take the three that I've had on, they said that they just went to the gym every single time and they just did the work. Granted, a lot of them had coaches and maybe had backing so they could spend full time. Maybe that was a differentiator. But once again, going back, it's just very simple. Olympians or your listeners are going to hate this. Very simple to be an Olympian. You just have to do the work day in and day out, day in and day out. It's very mundane. It's very boring. That's what I'm learning with the podcast, is that this is the fun part. Mm-hmm. This is the easy part. Mm-hmm. The hard part is the editing. Figure out what Audacity is. Figure out all the mechanics. That's the boring part. But doing that over and over and over, and I was talking with another podcaster, one of the things that I've been able to grow is that I've started to get into a groove of doing the mundane. So meaning I record a podcast. Out of that podcast, I'll make a small 10-minute podcast. Out of that 10-minute podcast, I'll make 10 pieces of content, and I'll put it on Facebook, Instagram. I go into subreddits and talk to subreddits and all those. Then I go onto TikTok. I go onto LinkedIn. I plaster it on Facebook groups, and all that stuff is very boring and very mundane. But in order to grow,
it's the most necessary.
Exactly. It's the most necessary part.
Yeah.
I thought when I was ready to start the podcast, I thought that this was going to be it. I was like, I love talking to awesome people like you. I love talking to all that. That's the easy part. And I thought that's all that it was. But it's the stuff behind it. It's the day-to-day stuff. It's the every single time those Olympians go and eat the salad versus the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, which are my favorite, by the way. That is why they became an Olympian.
Yeah.
And it's the mundane things.
Shit nobody sees, man.
It's the thing nobody sees. That's why they're successful. That's why they've been able to achieve the things that they've been able to achieve. And so that's the thing I've learned, but it's also the thing that kind of bums me out because everybody wants it tomorrow. Everybody wants
that
it now.
end goal.
Yeah,
without the work.
Goal. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all this mundane daily tasks every single day in and day out. And that's when, you hear all these quotes and everything that everybody loves and, trust the process, it's the journey, not the destination. All that stuff doesn't make sense until you actually have to emotionally go through it. And so now I'm emotionally understanding that it's the journey. It's knowing that when I get there, I got to do the subreddit, I got to do this, I got to do that, and creating a process to where it's easier for me, but day in and day out, just doing those mundane things will get you to where you want to go. You just have to create that process and get into that journey, because now it's a lot easier than when I first started. And for those Olympians, especially when they're on their second Olympia or Olympics, it's a lot easier because they've done it. And so no matter what you're going through or what the deal is, even if it's thinking positive, which I know that is like kind of bullshit, you can't
right. It gets lost in what people say about it. Everybody says that, you know?
It's the same thing, but the antithesis or the convex is the exact same way. Going back to how I got into that Fleabag Motel, it was the mundane thoughts that it was one time a day, I'm a nothing, I'm a nobody, then it was 2 times a day, then it was 3 times a day, then it was all day out of a week, then it was 2 days out of a week, 3 days out of a week, then it was all week.
Became your practice.
Exactly, became my practice. And just as you can practice good, you can practice bad. But here's the thing that also I learned from, not to be too dorky or nerdy, but learned from neurologists and literally how the brain works, is that here's the thing for people like you and I or anybody listening. If you have ever had depression or anxiety or been to those depths that we talked about before, you are so much, when you have a good day or when you have a positive day, you have to realize, and this isn't bullshit, I'm not placating, I'm not throwing sunshine, I'm not trying to make you and I sound better, but literally, you are stronger than the average person. And what I mean by that is that something happens, and because you've created other pathways in your brain to think negative, you have more opportunity for it to go bad. But when you choose it to go good, when you choose it to go positive, you are stopping so many different pathways of thinking to get to that positive than the average person that doesn't have all those pathways. So the analogy that I use is like, when you drive home and you're driving down the freeway, usually you get off on the same exit. For me, during that time, it was negative exit. And then as you start to do work, you start to do therapy, you start to have medication, whatever it is to get you better, then all of a sudden you have a different exit, and that exit's positive. The other negative exit's still there, and sometimes you'll take it without realizing it, and you're like, oh shit, got off on the wrong exit. And so the people that have had those depths of despair or those depressions, they have more negative exits and more opportunities to go down a bad path than someone that hasn't. So you're so much stronger than the average person. You're swimming with a weight vest on, but then all of a sudden, the more times you do it, you can kind of start to release some of those poundage and start to swim a little bit faster. So that's the other thing. You can use it for good or you can use it for bad, but the bad is always there. It's always an option, and you have to be so diligent with the mundane thought processes. Or for me, it's like meditation, it's eating right, it's working out, it's listening to positive things, listening to positive messages like your podcast, listening to upbeat music, all these little tiny things to kind of keep me going so I pass those negative exits and I don't go down those paths. So that's the other thing that I've learned too, that's been really, really valuable to me, because knowing that I can slip at any time, I have to have my daily practice, whatever that is for me. The more times I do that throughout the day, the easier it is to take the good exit versus the negative exit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense, dude. The way I see it, is my light blinking, or is it my eyes are fucking with me?
I think it's. I don't know.
I feel like it's getting brighter. It's so weird. Let me. Unless it's my freaking eyes are messing with me, dude. It's so hot in here. Maybe it's just me. I'll have to edit some of this out. You know, like I said, taking as much as I can from you. You know, we as podcasters now, you know, and I'm not saying, you know, we're the Joe Rogans of the world,
Right.
but hey, man, he just to go off like a sidebar, in 2010, he was doing his live podcast to like 200 people, man.
Yeah.
Fast forward 10 years later, he sells it for fucking $100 million or plus, because he hasn't really come out with how much he really got, but.
Yeah.
Like that is progression. But aside from just that progression and you wanting to make that end goal and get there and be that person, the mundane shit, the practice.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people talk, you know, time heals all. For me, I kind of like to break that down and say, okay, but there's two types. There's negative time, and then there's positive time.
Yeah.
You can make your time very negative. Trust me, man. I got very good at making it negative. And I, you know, use my false prophets of putting weed, alcohol, and opioids above fucking, you know, my kids, my relationship, my work. And I began making that my practice.
Yeah.
And this is all subconsciously, dude. This is all deep down in the brain, where I didn't see it as like, oh fuck, man, I'm becoming, you know, a loser, or I'm becoming a junkie or an alcoholic. I just saw it as, wow, these are the things that I need to get me by.
Mm-hmm.
When in actuality, what needs to get me by is all in here, all in here. And like you were talking about, creating and motivating yourself by giving yourself those little challenges of moving that quarter, you know, from one place to another.
Yeah.
From getting up and making your bed, from running or walking 3 miles every day.
Yep.
Some people never, ever get to that point. And like I was telling you earlier, I got friends and family that, you know, are in their late 60s, early 70s, and they deal with the same pain that I've dealt with. I'm 32 now. I can't imagine going another 32 years feeling the same shit I've been through.
And that's the thing, that, not to let them off the hook, because I have some same family like that, but think about taking that negative exit for another 30 years and then trying to break that habit all of a sudden. That's a motherfucker to break. And so it's like, I don't really fault them, but at the same time, you know,
It's easier. It's easier not to face that shit, dude.
For sure.
It's easy to, like you were saying, keep taking that exit because it's all you know.
Yeah.
And well, fuck, man, I can take that other exit, but then I gotta go around this, and then I got another barrier ahead, you know, or I got another obstacle. And like you were saying, you build these things in your head, and those paths will be there.
Yeah.
There's plenty of positive paths you can take in your life. And as a father, I want to be able to tell my children, look, I've been through door 1, 2, and 3, and they're fake. They're fucking false.
Yeah.
The door 1 telling you that, you know, you enter here, you're gonna make enough money to feel better. That's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Take door 2, where it might not be financially rewarding as door 1, but trust me, you're gonna be more rewarded in yourself.
Yeah.
And all the money, all that bullshit, it will come. It will come over time, as long as you're doing something that you're passionate about and that you truly love.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love, you know, like you were saying, speaking with people just like yourself, and your podcast, OvercomingU, like, those things are so necessary, and to hear what you take from it,
Mm-hmm.
it's fucking amazing, dude. because I know what you're taking from it. You're also giving to that listener right now that's listening to us that is struggling, dude.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about, coronavirus is here right now. We're in the middle of a goddamn pandemic. Although things seem to be maybe sloping down,
Yeah.
people are struggling right now, man. And mental health in this moment is vital, dude.
Yeah. You said something that I wanted to make sure that I offered as a piece of advice, but I understand because I don't have kids, so please forgive me from speaking out of school. But one of the things that I'm trying to tell all my friends, so like I said, I'm 38, all my friends have kids, and they range from, brand new born baby, like 8 weeks old, they just had a baby, all the way to 12. But the fastest growing group that has increased threefold in suicide attempts, depression, anxiety, are little girls ages 11 to 16. And it just so happens, I know you have 2 girls, and so I implore you that what your parents did, or maybe our parents' generation, their quote unquote good dad or good mom was, hey Josh, you did really good today. I'm so proud of you. You're so handsome. Never ever stop doing that, but that is not enough. You have to get them right now at age 9, age 4, whatever your age kids are, right now you have to get them into that process now. Hey, I'm so proud of you. Tell me what you did good. And make them come up with that so they start getting into that process now. And I'm trying to tell all my friends, every single day you need to start that mindset and start building those exits and those pathways. So when they look at something, hey, what did you do well? And make them tell themselves that, so they start to build that self-worth. That's their little quarter. And so they do it now. So when they get to our age, they don't have to deal with that shit. They don't have to figure out how to build that self-worth. They've already had it for that time that you're with them. Because the thing with social media and everything, I'm different. I love that social media exists. I love everything about it. I love whatever the next thing is. I'm excited for it to get bigger. But social media is just a tool. And it's all how you use that tool. If I give you a hammer, you can hammer yourself in the eye, or you can build a house. It's all how you use it. And so since it's not going away anytime soon, it's only going to get more invasive or more inside of our privacy. Make sure that we figure out the next generation, or help them understand that, stop the comparison, and make sure that they look at themselves first and what they did right, what do they like about themselves, how do they look, what do you like about your appearance, make them look inside now, so when they hopefully get to our age, then, or when we're, heavens forbid, we're not around, they're
a step above.
Yeah, they're
man.
step above, and they have more of those positive exits versus those negative exits. Because I know that, like I said, I know that my parents, maybe they're not the best example because they weren't the best parents, but I know even the good parents, that's all that they knew, and that's kind of how they parented. Because I'm terrified for the next generation. It really scares me, and like I said, I don't have kids, but I know that out of the 12 kids that I surround myself with, that I would gladly step in front of a car or take a bullet for any single one of them. And if I would do that for somebody else's kids, I can only imagine the depths of love that you have for your own. And so it's just, I want to make sure to...
Yeah, no, I appreciate that advice, because, as a dad that deals with mental health, you tend to get wrapped up in that, I love you, I'm proud of you, I'm being able to, be able to give what maybe my parents didn't give me. I dealt with not receiving, that praise or them telling me I'm worthy. And now, like, as a father, one thing me and my therapist have discussed is the ability to reparent yourself through your children. So maybe the things that I lacked as a child, I can then give to my kids, in tenfold, and I can give it to them as much as I possibly can. And one thing for me is, like, again, going back to our depression, is you tend to tell yourself, I'm not a good dad, I'm not a good person. And there's going to be things that my children might go to therapy about that I missed and I fucked up on. but I can't let myself slide down and build, that negative fucking thought about myself as I'm a horrible dad, because I'm also trying to build their self-worth.
Yeah.
And having two girls, I tell my therapist all the time, I'm so glad I'm on this journey right now. Although, I could have done it earlier, right now, so I can be better for when my daughters hit 11, 12, 13 years old. And most single dads, unfortunately, tend to throw their hands up in those ages because they're going through, puberty, or things are developing, and men might not feel comfortable talking about certain things, and they tend to just kind of take that step back. But that is the core time when they need a male present in their, a positive male. Yep. And if I'm fucking around and I'm, smoking weed to get by at 12, 13 years old, when my daughter tells me, Dad, I hate you, or God forbid she tells me something like that, I won't fold and then have a fucking mental episode where I want to harm myself. At least I'm working on it now, so when we do encounter those tough issues in their adolescence, I can face it and be there for them. Yeah. Okay, I understand you feel that certain way. You might be mad because I told you can't go to the movies with your friends. I'm not going to fold if you're going to tell me, I'm a horrible dad. Yeah. Because we both know that's not true. But I also understand you have your feelings. I get it. Let it out. Get it out. Then we can work on it. And then I can teach them, all right, maybe the way you went about it is definitely not the right way, honey. Let's work on something that I've learned. Look at, I've done that. I've cursed out my parents. I've told them they're the reason, I'm X, Y, and Z. Yeah. When I really shouldn't have done that. I should have had the proper tools to maybe communicate with my parents. I didn't. Fuck it, man. I can't go back and fix that, but I can fix it for my children and ongoing. And like what you were saying is, our parents did the best they could, regardless of what traumas or issues we may have dealt with them. They tried to get us to the next level to give us a better start. For me, I can't say I've been doing that. I was, smoking cigarettes all the time, smoking weed, drinking, all that shit. The percentages are so high if you have a parent in the household that's using these things, that their kids are going to do it, Sure. So if I'm doing that shit, I'm starting my daughters off down here. For decisions I'm making, I'm not going to do that. I can't live like that. And I refuse to. And, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, of course I want the podcast to grow. I want OvercomingU to be, I want, to hear like, oh, I remember Josh and meeting him in that hot-ass warehouse, dude, and seeing you now with, whatever you might have. And I want us to grow. I want us to get there. And if we don't, or if I don't, this is something I can give my daughters. I can give them this audio. I can give them this video. I can tell them, look, your dad tried. Your dad tried to fix everything about himself. Yeah. Everything. He tore himself apart trying to fix himself. And I want them to be able to have something that they can, when they encounter those tough moments in their life, because they will, and they're going to be a lot different from what we're dealing with now. I think about it in the sense of like the goddamn iPhone, man. The iPhone came out in 2006, I think, and now it's 2020, and we're on like iPhone 11, and the technology has just grown. In 2034, what the hell are we gonna have? Nanochips or some shit, And they're gonna have their own issues with whatever they're facing in 2034. I want to be able to show them, you know what? Your dad faced a different issue that may have been even harder, but he got through it. Yeah. Because there was a moment where their dad, me, felt that he couldn't get past it. And I wanted to give up. I gave up on my children. I gave up on my life. Yeah. I don't want my daughters to do that. Like you were saying, there's exits that you can take. I want to close that fucking exit so they never see it, and they can use their own and build their own exit that's way more healthier than the exit I tried to take. Yeah. And doing that through the podcast is something that I think we both relate on, definitely. And having the guests that you've had on and all, it's a wide variety, dude. I saw your musicians, and like you were saying, having Olympics, Olympians on there, that's fucking huge, man. Yeah. And taking something from practice, something that somebody dedicates to being a gymnast, and they're doing curls every day that nobody sees, and they only see that one curl that they do during the Olympics or whatever the damn thing is. it's that hard work. It's that grind, man. It's that grind. But what I kind of want to pull out of you is you understanding the grind, the mundane work. What do you use, or what do you do to not get bored with it? Because I think guys that deal with mental health, we're easily to get bored, and that's really scary for us because we tend to maybe not do the best things when we're bored. How do you get away from that shit?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that boredom is two things. When I have boredom, and then when I'm focused on myself, is when a lot of negative thoughts start to creep in, and I can see myself start to go down that exit. So one thing that works, and it's not easy to do, but works every time once I do it, and there's some steps to get there, is for me, if I focus on someone else, or especially with the podcast when I don't want to do any of those mundane things, when I focus on the Rudy or the Josh that's listening that hasn't been through it, that is in that hotel, I think about that person, and then I go, oh, I literally think, like, if they were right here, what would I say to them? What would I do? Would I do this? If I knew that this podcast was going to help that previous Josh, that old Josh, would I do it? And the answer is always yes. Or I think about, what I want, how I want my wife to look at me, and the times that I love that look that she gives to me the most is when I've done the work, either after a hard workout or I get a guest on, or I feel like I just crushed a talk, with kids. She looks at me with those eyes like, you're my fucking man, like you were my dude. And she doesn't have to say anything, she doesn't have to give me a compliment. It's that look that every guy knows. And because it's a combination of that, I feel it, once again, moving that quarter, building that self-worth. But then when she looks at me that way, you can bring Mike Tyson in this motherfucker. I'll be ready to fight him. I'm invincible. Now, in order to get there, there's a whole lot of technical things that I do. And it's so interesting. I think I either said it before we were recording or not. I just had a bad day. And what happened, I had a bad day, and everything's been going really well for me in all aspects and some other things, but I let those thoughts get away, and I didn't do the little things that usually pull me out. For me, the little things are, I have a list of different songs, that pump me up or that make me feel good, that I'll put on. Or as soon as I start to feel like a negative, like if I'm at the computer and I'm doing something, as soon as I start to feel negative, immediately get up and go for a walk, get out of that physical space and kind of just get out of there. Or go and meditate, do 6 big deep breaths in and 6, do box breathing.
From the sternum up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Breathe in for 4 through the nose, hold for 4, out through 8, and all those little tiny things, a bunch of other things that I've done through therapy, and get to there. And then I can kind of get out of myself, look at the other person, because that's the thing where depression usually resides. It's the thing with anxiety is usually when you're focused on the future, and depression is usually when you're ruminating or constantly thinking about the past, like, why did I say that? Oh, fuck, I should have done that. That's one thing that me driving from here, I'm going to have to make sure to stop myself. I know I'm going to say that to myself already. God, Josh, why'd you say that? Why'd you talk so long? What the heck's going on? Whatever it is.
Could have done this, could have done that, could have said that, should have said this. Yeah, I had a whole plan of what I wanted to say, and
Exactly.
I get you, man.
And then
I get you.
The other thing is being in the present moment. It is impossible, literally impossible, to be upset, have anxiety, or have depression when you're in the present moment. Right now, when I'm talking to you, I'm not thinking about my past. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm just locked in with you. I'm excited to be here in this hot ass fucking thing talking to you, but I'm present, which I feel really good about. And however you can get into the present moment, and there's other little tactical ways to do that. One of the things is grounding. Sounds so simplistic or something.
All of it does sometimes, man.
But if you take your shoes off and just go walk in the grass and look at each foot before you step, you're in the present moment, and just for a fraction of a second, You're going to get out of that depression, get out of that anxiety, and then hopefully you can do whatever else work, whatever I just said, whatever else you've learned or thought of to kind of get through that. And sometimes all you need to do is just get through that one little 5 minutes or that little half hour, that little hour, and then that day starts to kind of go in a spiral in a good way versus spiral in a bad way. But it's when you leave it unchecked, and that is very, very, that's dangerous ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so
and it tends to be the easiest too.
Yeah, the tip that I would give anybody listening or to you, as soon as you have a negative thought, regardless of what it is, check it. It's not easy the first time, but check it. Do any of the things I just said or any of the things that you've learned, and start that process, because that's that building that muscle of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to be hard the first time to check it, but it's going to be easier the next time, and then you get to the Olympic level athlete where they have a negative thought, but it's fractions of a second. They've learned to get over it fractions of a second and be in the moment. You know, I assume that you saw the Last Dance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, same thing. One of the things that Jordan said in there, he's like, no, you got to be in the moment. Just be in the moment. So when he's taking a shot, he's not thinking about if he's going to miss it or what happens if. He's thinking of, he's in the moment and in that shot going forward, which is why he's able to make so many shots, which is why my favorite athlete sitting here, Kobe Bryant, was able to be so amazing. They were in the moment, not thinking about what's going to happen after, and they've done all the process, the mundane things to get that. So in that moment, they are the best they possibly can be, and they're thinking in the moment, so they're the best, and so everything's aligned, and then whatever happens. So
that's, I mean, dude, you nailed it. Speaking about being in the moment and knowing who you are, I kind of want to piggyback on that and also add, being in the moment is more than just being present. I think a lot of people get that confused often is well, I'm here. Well, you know, my girlfriend, my wife, my fiance might be, you know, whoever's in your life, well, they want to spend time with me. I'm always around you. I'm here. That does not mean you're spending time with them. That does not mean you're in the moment. That just means you're present. It happened a lot in fatherhood where I don't think it's a possibility anymore for that dad to come home and, you know the dad that came home, sat in his chair, drank his beer, and went to bed at 9 o'clock. Didn't do homework, didn't ask the kids. Like, he was just there. He was that guy.
Yep.
He wasn't in the moment. He was just a provider or being present. And I think a lot of people misconstrue being present and actually being in the moment. And, you know, kind of what you said is a great reminder of that. For me, definitely is enjoying the people you're around when you have them around you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, after Kobe passed in this year, God, this year's been ridiculous. I can't believe it happened this year.
I can't believe it either.
And
just asked me that too. Yeah,
it feels ages ago, but you know, he's a prime example of, you know, him and his daughter went on a normal thing. They took their helicopter to go play a game, and they never came home. I want to make sure that when I am around my daughters, or I am with my fiance, or I'm with, you know, hanging out with you, I want to be present. I want to know that, because dude, there's no freaking guarantee that I will see you again, or I'll see my children again, or I'll see my fiance again. And I want to enjoy every moment. And I'm not saying I'm fucking perfect, dude, where I'm all laughs and I love every single moment, you know. There's times where me and my fiance just don't want to be around each other because we might be going through a certain issue. Yeah. But having the ability to, like you pointed out to that Olympian, when they had those negative thoughts, they can, you know, fuck this, man. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go do what I need to do to be a better athlete. We can do that as men. But it takes time, and it takes self-reflection, self-motivation. It takes a lot of work internally. Internally, you have to look into yourself and see who you actually are. Yeah. And you know, to add to what we spoke about, I think a big thing is being honest with yourself. Because if you're not being honest with yourself, you're gonna fucking hurt yourself. And I say that out of experience, man. You know, there's been times where, Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm telling everybody I'm doing fine. I'm doing perfect. I'm fucking getting high. You know what I mean? I'm getting high every hour of the day running from my issues, but I'm over here telling people I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
That's fucking lying to them. It's a lying to myself, and it might make myself be able to get through that moment or whatever that question that they're asking me. But if I'm not honest with myself, dude, I'm just going to keep plummeting.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep plummeting. How did you, because obviously, you know, both of us, I think, can relate that we've come from a dark place and we still deal with it.
Yep.
You know, like the scars on my face are within a month. I had a panic attack that I've never experienced before, and I completely passed out. This was like last month. I still deal with my depression, my pain, my anger. How do you remain honest with yourself? What makes you be honest with yourself? It's a really broad question, but I guess what I'm looking for is like a tool or maybe something you do. Just, I mean, it could be something simple, you know. How do you stay or keep honesty within Josh?
Yeah, for me, it's meditation, and I wish there was a different word that we could use because there's such a connotation with that.
Mm-hmm.
But meditation is different for everybody. It's different for everybody. Whatever it is that gets you into the present moment and allows your brain to kind of just downshift a little bit. For me, I just do classic meditation in the first thing in the morning, but it can be surfing, it can be skating, you know, it can be anything that just allows you to be in the moment for however long you can get there. Because what you're going to do is you're going to kind of just power down that brain. And for me, first thing I do when I get up is I go outside, I do 50 jumping jacks, and then I meditate. Meditate sometimes for a minute, sometimes for a half hour, however the spirit moves me or whatever. But if I just kind of downshift to start my day, I'm able to be proactive versus reactive throughout the day, and it just allows me to kind of set the intention for the day. But then also when I'm doing those meditation, it's not about, everyone always says when I talk to my friends, they're like, I can't meditate, I just have too many thoughts. That's going to happen, that's the whole point. Right. But I'm able to see those thoughts and I'm able to look at it and go, okay, that thing you did yesterday was not very good. How can you get better? But it's how can you get better without self-judgment? And that's the real key. So for me, that tactical practice is meditation in the morning, and then I'm able to kind of look at myself honestly, but without judgment, which is the whole key, which is nothing that happens overnight. Because once you start to get honest with yourself, you're going to be like, okay, that podcast, that was not very good. He's never going to have you back. But if you go, okay, you didn't do very, very well. What could you have done better? Without that self-judgment is that whole portion. Because one of the main pillars of my podcast and thing that I want to get out, and I will debate to the death with anybody. I am convinced that pretty much every single thing on the face of the planet can be fixed if you are kinder to yourself. So many things come from judgment. You know, the whole
hurt people.
Yeah, I heard something from, you know, you said lying to yourself. It comes from fear, and you're scared. And I heard actually Pablo Escobar was in a interview, and he goes, you know, you lie, you cheat, you steal, and he goes, whoa, I don't lie. He goes, what do you mean you don't lie? He goes, lying comes from fear. I'm not afraid of anybody. I tell the truth every single time. And I was like, I took that to heart, and I was like, if you think about it, when you lie, you're scared. When I say, hey, you know what, I did really good at that podcast, but I know I didn't, I'm lying to myself because I'm scared about telling the truth. You know, when you say, hey...
And it's so fucking easy,
so
dude.
Easy. Hey, how was your day?
Easy.
It was good. It was fine. That's a lie. Because you're scared to tell me, you know what, man, I'm not having a good day. Because you're scared of what I'm going to think. You're scared of that
The
you're
reaction.
going to put my reaction, or that you're going to put too much on me. It comes from fear, but as soon as you're able to be honest with yourself, void of judgment, then you're able to be honest to the outside, or project honesty outside. I know that the better that I view myself, not in a haughty narcissistic way, the better I am with my wife, the better I am with my friends. And so when my wife says, hey, how was your day? I'm able to say, you know what, I'm having a hard day, because I was honest with myself first, and I was kinder to myself. I just think if we were all be kinder to ourselves first and take care of ourselves first, bullies would cease to exist. No bully in the history of ever has looked in the mirror and go, I love you, dude, and then go and then bully somebody.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So if we're just kinder to ourselves, we'll project kindness. We won't be so scared and so fearful. We won't lie or embellish or omit whatever we're talking about. We'll be open, and I just think our lives will be increasingly better through and through.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, dude. I think I can be overly honest to a fault, where I might speak of myself so poorly that people might get turned off or have a negative view of me, and so be it. I mean, I'm at this age in a different point in my life where, I can't say I don't care about what people say. People, I think overall everyone does, but it's how you accept it. Do you base your life on what they say? If you're doing that, I think that's negative. That's the worst thing you can do. But do you take into consideration what some people say? Sure. That's what I do. And, I can't say that when I leave here, I'm going to drive home and say, man, I don't give a shit what Josh thinks of me. No, I'll be thinking like, man, I hope he enjoyed himself. I hope he had a good time. And if, it comes to back to that honesty, and hurt people. If, like you were saying, no bully wakes up and praises himself in the mirror and then goes and beats a dick at school. It all starts with yourself, and I would just love to leave our episode. Well, first off, I want to make sure you're clear that I want to have you back on here, dude.
Yeah,
I definitely got to get you back on here, sure. Dude. And I know we can go on about everything. Like, even when we were talking about like modern times and what's going on in the current world, like, I'm sure people would love hearing that.
Yeah.
And but I definitely want to leave with what you said to the listener. Being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Start something small. Like you were saying, moving one quarter from one place to another. Maybe let's start from being kind to ourselves when we wake up and we do see that reflection when we're brushing our teeth or getting ready. Give us one little compliment.
Yep.
Good job waking up today, dude. And then go on to your day and start off small. And if you could build something out of that, man, we might be able to help a lot of people.
Yes.
And I definitely want to leave that. I want to say thank you so much for being here, Josh. I really do appreciate it, bro. I appreciate it.
No, it's been fun.
Yeah.
No, I love what you're doing.
Yes, OvercomingU, the podcast, right? The OvercomingU. You can find it any social media. Everywhere. If you'd like to have him on, definitely reach out. I will be posting this everywhere on my Instagram. Josh is an amazing human being, a soul. I am, like I told you when we first started out, dude, I'm proud of the man you decided to become. And I hope you continue, bro. I'm a huge supporter. And again, I'm happy to have you on, dude.
Cool. Thank you, man. I really do appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
bro.
you.
Thank you.